Hi everyone, I'm going to show you some just quick tips and tricks for Fusion 360 and just show you what the layout looks like. This should be helpful, especially if you've never used a CAD program before, or if you have used a CAD program, if you used a different one, this is going to be useful. So first thing we're going to do is launch Fusion 360. During this process you might get asked to log in. So if you do, just use the login for whatever the login you created when you installed the program. Fusion 360, it gives you kind of this initial screen here. It kind of gives you like a blank page, untitled, like this is a new document. Think of it kind of like if you're going to launch like a new Google Doc or a new Microsoft, like a new Office document such as like Word or Excel or something, you get a blank page. Over here on the left, these are kind of your folders. So if I just click the home, this is probably what it's going to look more like when you first launch it up. You won't have some of these, but you'll probably have this thing called, whatever your name is, first project. These are just sort of generic folders that it creates for you. Autodesk Fusion 360, even though you had to install application, everything is saved to the cloud, which is nice. So you could work on your computer here. Say you had access to a computer lab that had it, you could go, and as long as you logged in, you could go and pick up right where you left off and just start working, kind of like Google Docs. There's some other things that might be useful for you here. So there's like demo projects that you could play around with to get comfortable. And then down here you have basic training, and some of the samples. You can kind of see the types of things you can do in Fusion 360. So this, we'll have it open, and if you started with number 1, which is way down here, and you could go through sort of their training. Their training is going to take a lot of time, but so hopefully the activity that we have for you this week will get you at least familiar with CAD. What I'm going to do, I'll show you later how to create new parts, but first thing I'm going to do is just show you some of the other interface. I'm just going to open up the part that you're going to make, just so that I can do some manipulation you can actually see versus just a blank white screen. So we kind of went over this. If you want to hide this, you can just do this, or you can do hide data panel. If you do hide and show, you can hide that just so that you have more of your screen to work with. You've got that. You've got file new. This is your typical file drop down menu. And then you have a save button, which is grayed out because I haven't made any changes, and then undo, redo, and there's you can undo a few steps. The same shortcuts should apply in Fusion 360 as you're used to. So like Controller Command C is copy, Control or Command V is paste, Control Z is undo. In some cases, undo is Controller Command Y, or in some cases it's Control Shift or Command Shift and Y, or Control Shift Z. But so that's kind of your normal, typical file management stuff. There's some preferences and stuff up here. You probably only will need to possibly do preferences here. That might be the only thing you might have to change, depending on if you want to do inch or metric. Next thing we have is this toolbar here. So you notice, Fusion 360 has a handful of different modes it can do. So right now we're in design mode. This is the one you're going to use for this class. You can look at the different modes. Generative design, that's going to be a little more complex. You can play with it if you want, but it's not needed. Same with render, animation. These are kind of self-explanatory. Simulation is if you wanted to do, mechanical analysis of your parts. Again, this is not something we need to do in this class, but just show that it has it. Manufacture, this lets you machine the parts. This would be something fun to demo to you guys. I have some videos of some of the parts in your kit being made that I can show you kind of based off of this. And then drawing. Drawing is going to be like converting your three-dimensional shape into 2D drawing where you show different views. But again, you don't need to really care about any of these. You just need to make sure that if you get into some weird mode where all your buttons are different here, just make sure you're in the right mode and you go back to design. And up here, some of these will be explained in your lab handout, but these, basically the first ones here, these are the ones you're going to be using the most. So create a sketch. All of your 3D models start with a sketch. So you kind of have to define something in 2 dimensions, then tell it how to become 3 dimensions. For instance, this first one here is extrude. This will take your 2-dimensional drawing, and you can either say you pull it to extend it, or you use it to cut out in your part. We have revolve. Revolve basically rotates your sketch around a central axis, so it's great for something. For instance, we're going to be doing it on the bell right here because it's axially symmetric, so you can go 360 degrees and it's the same. These 3 buttons are the primary ones you're going to use. And then you've got a hole tool, so if you had a very specific hole you wanted, you can use this. You can either use the extrude and cut, or you can do the hole. The hole feature gives you a few other options, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a pain to dimension. So if you just need something simple, I would recommend the extrude. You can do patterns, so if you needed the same sort of feature done multiple times, you don't have to draw it multiple times. You can just draw it once and tell it to pattern it. So like say you had a whole bunch of holes in a row, you wouldn't need to draw each of those holes. You could draw one hole and then just tell it how far to space them out. And then create form. This is going to be something more that's, think of it kind of like sculpting, where you can like push and pull on areas. I never use it. It's for more organic shapes, so if you wanted to like stylize things, you could use that. These are the primary ones. There's even more options down here if you click on this link. So if you're looking for something and it's not up here, it might be in here. A lot of them have pictures, and if you hover over it, kind of tells you what they do. The next is modify. So the modify is basically once you have this 3-dimensional shape, you can do things to it. So press pull will move faces or in or out. Fillet, these will add rounds, so sort of giving things round edges. When you go to do your mouthpiece, the part that's going to go into your mouth, you don't want that to be sharp, so you need to round the corners, and that's a simple way to do it. The shell tool we're going to use in this. The shell basically hollows out whatever 3-dimensional shape you have, and you just define how thick the wall is going to be. And then you have other few that don't get used. And again, there's a drop down to show you different things that you can do. Assemble is if you have multiple parts. So this is just one piece of the flute assembly. If you wanted to then add all the little pieces, the other 3D printed pieces that we gave you, if you wanted to add that to here, that's how you do that. And then construct. This is going to be really useful to know, because there's some times where we're going to start off, everything's going to be pretty easy. You can just reference one sketch off of another face or something that you already created. The construct, you're probably going to need at some point to use an offset plane, or maybe one of these other, an axis or something like that. And these are basically invisible planes that you can reference your geometry off of. Inspect, again, the measure tool you might need to use. You can measure from point to point. There's other different things. There's interference checks. That's if you're building something, you would want to make sure you don't have geometry that overlaps. There's a lot of, you probably don't need much in here other than the measure. And then insert, if you wanted to make things pretty, right? Like you can see, you can add different like logos and stuff, and then different selections. So that's the toolbar there. I can close that. Then down on the left here we have the browser. So there's a lot of little drop downs here. I would say open and close these. If you don't want them all open, because as you start building stuff, this is going to get full, and you might not see the things that you want. In other CAD programs, I don't know exactly what Fusion360 prefers to call this, but this is usually called like the feature tree, where you can break down different things. So document settings, this is an easy place. You can either do it in preferences, or you can do it here if you want to change it from inch to millimeter or meter or whatever you want. Named views, so this is if you wanted to go top, front, right, left, whatever. You can also create your own. So say you had something and you wanted to show like this angle, you could save this view and it would show up there. And then you've got your origins. These are, each of these show that they're visible, but the whole group is hidden. So if I show these, that shows you your origin location. So this is your XYZ, this is your three-dimensional coordinate system. So think of it just like you would think of a coordinate system in, you know, geometry. And then there's a plane that satisfies each of the combinations. So an XY and a YZ. These are going to be important. You're going to want to do sort of your first features off of these. And then once you start creating, you won't have anything in here initially, but once you start creating your sketches and your extrusions, you should have a body, and then you'll have as many sketches as you have in your part here. You've seen me kind of scrolling in and out. Your scroll wheel, if you have one, I highly recommend a mouse if you have one for CAD. It's a little bit of a pain to do it with a touchpad, but it's not impossible, it's just a little more frustrating. But your scroll wheel, or if you do the same, if you scroll, like the two-finger scroll, if you have a touchpad, will zoom you in and out. If you click and hold the middle, the scroll wheel, that's where you can do sort of your orbit. You can rotate, move out. Control click, or probably on Mac command click, lets you pan. So those are just quick manipulation tools. You can also use this up here. You've got different view, you have this sort of box. You can sort of click and drag on that too, or you can just click that. This is sometimes useful to use if you don't have a mouse, this up here. So we'll go back to that. If for some reason your part either gets really zoomed out, you can't find your part, you're like, oh my god, where'd it go? There's a button over here that says fit. Just click that and it'll bring it back to your screen. So don't fear, like you probably didn't delete it, it probably just disappeared on you somewhere off. Sometimes that happens, it gets confused. There's sort of these tools down here, there's different ways to do your different rotation, look at, pan. If you didn't want to use a second, like if you didn't want to hit command while you dragged, you can do a pan. And then your zoom, your display setting. Your display settings you may want to change just this visual style. The others you can play with, but this one you might want to do just shaded. It gets rid of the lines. Shaded with hidden edges, so you can see what's kind of going on inside. I like this one. This is kind of like the standard with CAD these days to show you. It gives you kind of like the lines to outline the actual edges of your part. There might be also sometimes you want to do like wireframe where you can basically see through the whole thing in case you're having trouble finding stuff. But like I said, I like this one the best. And then grids and viewpoints, I usually never bother with those. Okay, and then I got out of that orbit by hitting escape. So we've gone through all the different ways to view your parts and how to move things around. The last part I really want to show you, and this should probably be it for the rest of this recording, is this section down here. Down here is kind of your history. This is like what you've done so far to create your part. So you can hover over and it kind of shows you, so if I rotate there, it shows you that sketch profile that I used for the revolve, then it shows the revolve itself, then it shows the shell, and then this second sketch, where I made the profile for this little part that helps us insert it into the other 3D printed pieces. This is really great, and once you've created these, you can go back and edit them. So for instance, if I wanted to change this profile shape, say I got a dimension wrong, or I wanted to make it bigger or anything, or even change the shape, I can go back, edit sketch, and I can go back and edit all of these dimensions that I've done before, hit finish sketch, and it'll do everything all over for you. Same thing with the extrude, or this revolve, say I only wanted it to go 180 degrees. I could type that in here and just go 180. This is probably going to break things though, so just be aware. Sometimes when you go and change things, it does modify. So see how my shell now looks like this, and this part's kind of kind of weird up here. So I'm just going to do undo, Control Z, Command Z. But you can go back again, you know, if you say you made the wrong dimension, again, you could go back here and change these dimensions. Sometimes you'll need to do that once you start doing more CAD on your own, where you kind of need to tweak dimensions. You can go back and change it. So say you needed this to be a little bit smaller. Say you made it too big and it doesn't really fit with the piece that you had before. Instead of going and creating an extrusion cut where you cut off that tiny bit, you just can go in and change the dimensions. Also notice how when I click on parts, you get these 3 little hashes there. That shows you what feature you're talking about. And usually for things that require sketch, the sketch is usually right before. It isn't always. It depends on if you could do all your sketches beforehand, but if you do like sketch and a feature and a sketch and a feature and a sketch and a feature, it's the sketch before is probably going to be the one that defines, you know, your extrude, your revolve. I think that's pretty much it, all that I have to tell you today. Thanks.